Imagine this. You're just a 12-year-old boy living in a quiet Bulgarian village, far from the cities, far from the noise of empires. It's the year 1550. The world is slow, simple, and for you. That's enough. Each morning the mist hangs over the valley like a soft curtain, blurring the green hills that surround your home. You rise before the sun, walking beside your father through damp grass, guiding the sheep toward the pasture. Their bells ring gently in the cool air, a rhythm you've known since you could walk. You don't need to be told what to do, you just know. This life, this valley, is all you've ever known. Your mother is near the hearth, preparing warm bread with her hands. She hums an old tune, the kind only mothers remember, and pours goat's milk into clay cups. The smell of wood smoke and earth fills your lungs. It smells like safety. It smells like home. Then it happens, distant but sharp, the sound of hooves on stone. At first it doesn't register, then it grows louder, faster. Your father stops. His face goes pale, his hand tightening around his staff. Your mother turns toward the door. The clay jug in her hand slips. It crashes onto the floor, shattering into pieces. Just like that, the calm is gone. The world, your world, begins to fall apart. The sound of horses fills the village square. You peek from behind a wooden cart. The men who arrive are not from here, that much is clear. They ride tall horses, wear robes of deep silk, stitched with patterns you don't understand. Their scrolls are bound with red ribbon. Their faces are unreadable, calm, cold, practiced. Everyone in the village knows who they are. The sultans, collectors. They've come before, but never for you. Never this close. They dismount in silence. No greetings, no explanations. They spread out across the square, scanning faces like farmers judging the weight of a lamb. Then one of them raises a hand. He points directly at you. Time slows. You feel your mother's scream before you hear it. She falls to her knees, clutching the hem of the man's robe, speaking through sobs in words they don't even try to understand. Your father doesn't move, doesn't speak. He knows. Everyone knows. Resistance means death. For all of you. One of the men walks toward you, grabs your arm. His grip is firm, not cruel, but final. As if there's nothing left to discuss. They tell your parents you will serve the Sultan, that it's an honor, that many boys are chosen, that you'll be trained, protected, even elevated. But as the cart pulls away from your village, and your mother's cries grow fainter behind you, those promises feel hollow. You clutch the edge of the cart, eyes wide, heart pounding. You will never see your home again, and the path ahead will cost you more than anyone can imagine. This is the beginning of your life in the palace, a world of marble walls and iron. Rules, a world ruled, not by mercy, but by order. You are no longer a son, no longer a child. You are property now, a gulam, one of the Sultan's boys. The journey to Istanbul is your first trial. There are others with you, maybe 40, maybe more. Some younger, some older. All taken, all scared. Some cry in secret. Others pretend to be brave. But none of you truly understand where you're going. You travel on foot. For weeks. The road is cruel. It winds through forests, across dry hills, into regions you've never heard of. Food is scarce, often just bread and old fruit. Water is rationed. Nights are cold, and you sleep in rough shelters or under the open sky. The guards carry whips, and they use them. Some boys grow sick, some fall, some refuse to get up. They are left behind. No one talks about it. No one even looks back. That's your first lesson in the empire. The weak do not survive. The boy beside you is slightly older, maybe 14. He says his name is Nikos. He was taken from a fishing village on the Greek coast. He walks with a limp from an injury he got trying to run on the third night. The guards caught him, dragged him back, beat him until he could barely move. They did it in front of all of you. As a message, he doesn't talk much after that. By the time you see the edge of Istanbul, you are thinner, dirtier, quieter. You've learned to lower your eyes, to speak only when spoken to. You've learned that silence is safer than defiance, and you've seen what happens to those who don't learn fast enough. You should be amazed by the sight of the city, by the gleaming mosques, the spires that reach toward the clouds, the mighty dome of Hagia Sophia, but all you feel is dread, a quiet, growing dread. This city does not feel like a place of new beginnings. It feels like a trap at the gates of the capital. Your group is divided. A second inspection begins, one far more thorough than the last. Men in fine robes examine each of you in detail. They look at your teeth, test your hands, measure your limbs, feel your skin, stare into your eyes like you're a painting in a market stall. They ask questions, make notes, whisper among themselves. You are being sorted. The most promising boys, the tallest, healthiest, brightest, are selected for something called the Enderun, a palace school for elite servants of the empire. Others, the stronger ones with fiercer builds, are marked for military training, future janissaries, the rest. No one tells you where they go. You never see them again. You're chosen for the palace. At first you think this might be good. The men smile when they tell you, but it's not the smile of kindness. It's the smile of possession. They've chosen you not because they care, but because they see value in you. Like a craftsman eyeing a rare piece of marble, you are not being saved, you are being shaped. The Enderun school is legendary. Some call it the first true school for the gifted, a place of elite instruction where future viziers, scholars, and commanders are trained. That's true, but it's not the whole. Truth, you will study, yes, Arabic, Persian, Turkish. You'll be taught math, science, law, music, calligraphy. You will learn how to speak, how to walk, how to think exactly as they want. But this education is not about knowledge, it's about control. You are housed within the Topkapi Palace, a city within a city, tall walls, guarded gates, endless. Corridors of cold stone and quiet rooms. No windows face the outside. You eat, sleep, and live behind those walls. Escape is impossible. You live in dormitories, long halls with narrow beds, all identical, each one lined in silk. At night, the air is filled with whispers in a dozen languages. Boys cry into their pillows. Others pray. Some pretend to sleep. But keep one eye open. You clutch a small wooden cross, the one your mother hid in your coat. Before you were taken, it's all you have left of her. But it doesn't last long. During morning inspection, a supervisor finds it. He says nothing, just takes it. You are given a new name, Mehmet. Your old name is never spoken again. Your old faith, gone. Conversion is expected, public, permanent. They bring you into a grand hall, dress you in ceremonial robes. There are candles, chants, ritual words. They call it a moment of honor, of acceptance. But you know better. You didn't choose this. No one here did. Still, you speak the words they tell you to say. And with every syllable, you feel the life you once knew slipping further away. But the hardest part isn't the lessons, or the rules, or even the conversion. It's what happens in the shadows. There is an unspoken system in the palace, a hierarchy, that rewards obedience and punishes resistance in ways you're only beginning to understand. It is here that you meet Amit. He's older, maybe 16, confident, too confident. One evening, as the lights dim and the other boys begin to settle, he walks up to your bed, sits beside you, smiles. "You're new," he says, softly. "You don't know how things work here." He's calm, almost kind. "But I do," he continues. "I can help you, protect you, even make you stand out. Teachers trust me. They listen to what I say." About the younger boys. Then he rests his hand on your shoulder, and suddenly the rules of this place, the real ones, begin to take shape. The first touch came when you were 12, a hand lingering too long on your shoulder during language lessons. The eunuchs. Fingers traced your collarbone with practiced familiarity while explaining the proper conjugation of Ottoman verbs. You froze, not from the contact itself, but from the way his eyes darkened with possession. "Bright students like you," he murmured, breath smelling of rosewater and cloves, "should show proper gratitude to their teachers." This was your introduction to the palace's hidden curriculum, where every lesson came with unspoken expectations. The system had been perfected over centuries, promising young boys taken from Christian villages, converted to Islam, and placed in an environment where advancement required surrendering more than just their faith. Your body became currency in an economy of favors, where protection from beatings cost whispered, promises in shadowed corridors. The dormitories at night revealed the true nature of your education. Older pages moved between beds with disturbing purpose, their hands correcting postures or adjusting sleeping garments. Newcomers learned quickly. Resisting meant isolation in the punishment cells, where rats gnawed at fingers pressed against cold stone floors. Compliance brought rewards, extra sweets, warmer blankets, protection from the worst predators. The most beautiful boys disappeared for nights at a time, returning with glassy eyes and silk sashes, marking them as favorites. "You'll need a patron," Demetrius told you during your 3rd month, his once bright eyes now dull as tarnished coins. At 14, he'd already mastered the art of survival, his wrists adorned with silver bracelets gifted by various officials. Alone, you're just meat, attached to someone powerful, ... He let the implication hang while adjusting the neckline of your tunic. That evening, you found yourself presented to the chief treasurer like a delicacy on a platter. The psychological machinery was diabolical in its efficiency. Each morning began with inspections where eunuchs examined not just your cleanliness, but your physical development. The most promising were assigned special tutors for private lessons in the palaces. Secluded pavilions. Your Persian language instructor made you recite poetry while seated on his lap, his hands guiding yours as you practiced calligraphy. The mathematics teacher praised your quick mind while demonstrating geometric principles with his fingers, tracing inappropriate angles on your body. What made the system truly inescapable was its veneer of normalcy. European visitors, like the Venetian ambassador, Contarini, wrote of being unsettled by the excessive familiarity between officials and pages, yet remarked on the impressive education these boys received. They didn't see the nighttime initiation, rituals where new students were passed between mentors like wineskins at a banquet. They couldn't hear the whimpers, muffled by silk pillows in the library annex. The physical environment itself conspired against resistance. Palace architects designed spaces to eliminate privacy, bathing areas with no partitions, sleeping quarters with intentionally thin curtains. The famous latticework windows provided clear lines of sight into every courtyard and classroom. Even the gardens, with their carefully pruned hedges, contained hidden alcoves where supervision became predation disguised as mentorship. Your classmate Stephanos embodied the costs of resistance. After refusing a vizier's advances, he was assigned to clean the stables barefoot in winter. When he still wouldn't yield, they moved him to the lamp rooms, where hot oil splashed on his arms left permanent scars. By the time he disappeared, officially returned to his village, though no one believed this. His once defiant spirit had been broken through calculated applications of sleep deprivation and public shaming. The palace's temporal rhythms further eroded your sense of self. Important dates from your old life, birthdays, religious holidays, were replaced by the Ottoman court calendar. Your given name faded from memory as you answered only to your Turkish title. Even your body's natural development became subject to imperial scrutiny, with physicians documenting your puberty as if charting livestock for market. Financial manipulation added another layer of control. While technically slaves, pages received monthly stipends, just enough to purchase small comforts from the palace markets. These coins inevitably found their way into the pockets of older students as protection fees or tutoring payments. The system taught you early that every pleasure, every respite from suffering, came at a price measured in flesh as much as currency. The few attempted escapes became object lessons. When Armenian Krika tried fleeing during the Ramadan festivities, they displayed his mutilated body in the courtyard for 3 days. The message wasn't merely punitive, it demonstrated the palace's omnipotence. Guards described in detail how they'd tracked him through the city's Greek quarter, emphasizing that no community could shelter runaways. Your nightmares thereafter featured Krikas, swollen face whispering, "They watch everywhere." Graduation brought not freedom, but more sophisticated bondage. Successful students entered imperial service as scribes, chamberlains, or provincial administrators, positions that required perpetuating the very system that had abused them. The most beautiful often became personal attendants to high officials, their positions precarious as their youth faded. You watched former classmates rise through the ranks by procuring new boys for their patrons, becoming the same monsters they'd once feared. The psychological scars manifested in ways European observers misinterpreted. French diplomat Debus marveled at the intense loyalty between Ottoman officials and their protégés, not realizing these bonds were forged through shared trauma. What he called devotion was often the 1,000-yard stare of men who'd survived by internalizing their abusers' values. At night, the palace's marble halls echoed with sounds no chronicler recorded: the stifled sobs of homesick boys, the creaking of beds in distant chambers, the whispered deals struck in darkness. The system's genius lay in making victims complicit. You might hate what was done to you, but after enduring it, you understood those who came after must suffer equally. This created an unbroken chain of abuse stretching back generations. When you finally took your first administrative post in the provinces, you brought with you both the palace's elite education and its twisted moral calculus. The boy who'd arrived trembling at 12 was gone, replaced by a man who could coldly assess new recruits' vulnerabilities. As you inspected the latest group of Christian conscripts, your eyes lingered on a dark-haired youth from Hungary, and in that moment, you understood with sickening clarity how completely the system had won. You step into adulthood, young man now fluent in languages most never learn, trained in science, politics, and courtly arts. You know how to speak with nobles, how to manage armies, how to navigate the complex rituals of empire. On paper, you are a perfect product of the palace, but beneath the surface, your soul has been altar-damaged in ways that cannot be undone. The education you received was not just in books or battle, it was in power, and that power was never clean. It was soaked in manipulation, submission, and survival. What the empire gave with one hand, it stole with the other your childhood, your innocence, your sense of self. For many boys like you, growing up in the palace wasn't an escape. It was just the first step in a life shaped by the same hidden violence. Those chosen for administrative roles found that the line between duty and desire, between political loyalty and sexual submission, was thin. If it existed at all, the lessons learned behind palace walls stayed with them. Power always had a price. Those who entered military life fared no better. Some became ruthless enforcers of imperial will, projecting the pain they had known onto others. Others broke entirely, their spirits crushed long before they saw a battlefield. They were soldiers not of glory, but of trauma and the empire. It never acknowledged this suffering. It spoke only of loyalty, efficiency, and strength. The abuses were not officially allowed, but they were tolerated, ignored, so long as they produced results. The system worked. That was all that mattered. The Ottoman elite, well aware of these practices, crafted an elegant story to shield themselves. They praised the palace school for its discipline, its structure, its brilliance. Any voice that dared criticize it was dismissed, called ignorant of how refined and sophisticated the empire truly was. Occasionally, a court historian would speak of the cost. One from the 16th century wrote, "It is true, the palace school demands great sacrifice. Not all who enter emerge unchanged. But from this crucible rise the empire's finest men, whose loyalty is unbreakable, whose talents have been sharpened like steel." That was the official story, but the truth, the lived truth, was far darker. Your transformation wasn't just about education, it was about obedience. It was about control. The very same halls where you learned poetry were the ones where your body was violated. The very hands that handed you books also touched you without mercy. The very system that promised advancement required you to surrender your soul. And you were not alone. The Ottoman palace school wasn't a hidden corner of cruelty. It was a public institution, known and praised, where learning and exploitation coexisted. Boys like you were taught languages, yes, but also silence. You studied law, but lived under unwritten rules of survival. You learned diplomacy, but never how to say no. And this mixture of true education and true abuse made it all the more dangerous. It blurred the line between opportunity and trauma until they became one and the same. You were groomed to serve, to impress, to obey. And while some part of you may have hoped for freedom, that hope was slowly buried beneath layers of performance. The empire saw you as successful, shaped, loyal, refined, but inside you were hollowed. The palace system reveals something uncomfortable about how pre-modern empires viewed power, sexuality, and control. The Ottomans weren't the only ones to use boys in this way. Ancient and medieval societies across the world did the same. But what made the Ottoman system different was how structured it was, how open, how accepted. It was not a perversion, hidden in shadows. It was an institution, celebrated, defended, even admired by the 1600s and 1700s, the system began to weaken. New weapons made the janissaries less essential. Bureaucracy changed. European influence crept in, and with it came new ideas about childhood and dignity. Slowly, the palace school lost its central place in the empire. But for the thousands of boys who had already passed through its gates, it was too late. Their suffering had already been sealed into their flesh and memory. The system might be fading, but its scars remained. Some of those boys rose to greatness. They became grand viziers, governors, commanders. They helped rule the empire that had once ruled them. But many, perhaps most, vanished from the record. Their names forgotten, their pain unspoken. All that remains are entries in dusty ledgers, dates of arrival, progress reports, assignments to distant provinces. No mention of what they endured. No mention of who they were or who they could have been. And yet, the walls remain. The same marble corridors where these boys once walked now echo with the footsteps of tourists. The palace has become a museum, its mosaics admired, its architecture praised. Visitors stare at the domed ceilings and gilded chambers, marveling at the splendor of Ottoman power. But the rooms are quiet about the past. They do not tell you what happened in the shadows, or what was expected behind the closed doors. They do not speak of the boys who wept in silence, or the men they became. The guides speak of innovation. They speak of order. They speak of a system that trained administrators and warriors, men of vision and strength. But they say nothing of the cost, nothing of the abuse, nothing of the boys who resisted and died, nothing of the ones who lived but never truly escaped. And as I bring this account to a close, thinking of you not as a symbol, but as a boy, I am reminded of something important. You were real. Your suffering was real. You had a name, a voice, a family. You were not born to serve. You were made to, shaped by a system that valued obedience over dignity, perfection over humanity. You stand now in my mind, in those silent corridors, young, afraid, and forgotten. But you are not alone. There were thousands like you, children taken, identities stripped, bodies used, spirits crushed, and most of them will never be known to history. Their voices lost, their stories erased. But you matter. You and all those boys like you deserve to be remembered. Not as strange artifacts of some distant culture, not as notes in a historian's footnotes, but as human beings, children caught in the machinery of empire, used up and discarded. Your ghost still walks those halls, in the hush of the museum air, in the polished stone that hides so much pain. You are still there watching. You remind us that every empire's golden age is built on invisible backs, that behind every act of glory lies a cost paid by someone with no choice, and that true history must never look away from the blood. Beneath the marble, the horror was not just in the cruelty, but in the system that allowed it. The calm repetition of abuse dressed up as order, the silence that followed, the forgetting. But not today. Today your story is heard, your pain is seen, and in remembering you, we honor not just your life, but the lives of all children across time who were caught in systems too large, too cold, and too powerful to escape. Their names may be lost, but their dignity will not be.